Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the second day of the 9th GCES conference. Before we get started, I would like to remind everyone that we do have live interpretation available into both Arabic and English. Please use the toggle at the bottom of the Zoom screen to change. Remember, we will have some presentations today in Arabic, so be sure and use the English function also when that happens. My name is David Dingus, and I am a researcher at the Al-Qasimi Foundation and the GCES Secretariat, which we founded out of a desire to support research on education in the Gulf region. And we organized the first GCES conference in 2011. In 2019, we launched the Gulf Education and Social Policy Review, an academic journal to further provide a platform for education and social research in the Gulf. GESPER, for short, is a bilingual Arabic and English, double-blind, peer-reviewed, open access journal. It has been a gargantuan task to launch this journal, but we are happy to have published 2 issues, the latest issue this last January. We believe that it is essential that the region has a bespoke journal, but we need your continued support to ensure its success. If you are interested in publishing your work on education or social policy, including your paper here at GCES, please consider submitting to the journal. We'd also please encourage you to please share it with your colleagues and anyone you think who might be interested. You can find more information about the journal on the GCES website and the GCES conference website. And if you have any questions, please reach out to us and we will be happy to answer them. I'd also like to remind everyone that we sent out emails yesterday regarding the vice presidential elections for GCES. Again, the vice president will succeed Dr. Huda Al-Asfour as president for the next GCES conference. We have 2 candidates, Dr. Sandra Baroudi, the assistant professor at Zayed University in the UAE, and Dr. Khalid Al-Abri, professor at Sultan Qaboos University in Oman. Please remember to review their motivation statements and cast your vote by 4:30 p.m. Kuwaiti time, 5:30 p.m. UAE time tomorrow. Please note, not everyone is eligible to vote. It is for active GCES members, including panelists and presenters this year and for years prior. If you have not received an email to vote and believe you should have, please send us an email to gces.symposium@gmail.com. We'd also like to encourage you to share any key takeaways or interesting speakers you come across today on Twitter. Please use the hashtag GCES2021. Moving on to today's conference, we have 5 panels that we have organized under the theme, The Potential for Development and Education Exchange. These panels will reflect on the importance of undertaking national and international comparative studies, discussing teachers' experiences and perceptions of the educational system, and collaborative efforts that can help resolve challenges within education. They also briefly touch on inclusiveness and the role of state actors in education. I want to extend a warm welcome to everyone who's joining us today, and thank you, especially our keynotes, Dr. Fatimah Alhashem, Assistant Professor at the Gulf University for Science and Technology, and Dr. Diego Santori, a Senior Lecturer at King's College. We also have several chairs for all of our keynotes and panels. I'd like to thank Dr. Esra Aleisa, Associate Professor at Kuwait University, Dr. Huda Al-Asfour, our President of GCES and Assistant Professor at the College of Basic Education and the Public Authority for Applied Education and Training in Kuwait. I'd also like to thank Dr. Salwa Al-Jassar, former member of the Kuwaiti Parliament and Associate Professor at Kuwait University. Marvin Erfurt, Senior Research Fellow at the Al-Qasimi Foundation and GCES Secretariat. Dr. Khalif Al-Abri, Assistant Professor at Sultan Qaboos University in Oman and candidate for the Vice Presidential elections for GCS, and Dr. Hud Abulushi, a non-resident fellow at Gulf International Forum and an experienced independent legal consultant. Before we get started, I'd also like to encourage everybody to be sure and share any questions they have for our wonderful speakers today using the Q&A function at the bottom of the screen. If you see the chat function, please don't use that, use the Q&A function. We have scheduled breaks throughout the conference day, and you're welcome to join the conference as your schedule allows. Please note that all times in the program, which is on the GCES 2021 conference website, the times are in Arab Standard Time. This means Saudi Arabia, Kuwait. If you're in the UAE, for example, be sure and add an hour so you don't miss a session. With that, I wish you all a fruitful conference, and I will hand it over to Dr. Esra Aleisa, Associate Professor at Kuwait University, to chair our first keynote speaker. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you, David. Sabah al-khair and good morning, and welcome to the second day of the conference. Today, I'm glad to present my friend and colleague in education, Dr. Fatimah Alhashem. So today she's going to present the third keynote speech for this conference, the need for the National Teachers Framework in Kuwait, a situation analysis of a hidden project. Dr. Fatima is an assistant professor in curriculum and instruction at the Gulf University for Science, Technology. She's the chair for the Center of Teaching and Learning and Research at GUST. She worked as a general manager for teacher development at the Department of National Center for Education and Development from 2015 to 2018. Her professional interests focus on the technological, the TPAC and TIMS studies. Additionally, she worked as a director for Ibtikar initiative for creativity to support women and young girls in science and research for 2 years. She's a member for the National Science Teacher Association, and some of her most recent publications include analysis based on 3 objectives educational domains for final summative secondary examinations, and much more. Dictora, your talk today will be discussing educational policies that are very important as an element for the reform and approaches for the state of Kuwait. So you can go ahead. You have 35 minutes, and for our audience, we have a small toggle at the bottom right where you can hear the Arabic translation. Our speech will be like 35 minutes. After that, we could entertain your questions. Please have them in the Q&A section of this presentation. Dr. Fatima, please go ahead.
Good morning. Thank you, Esra. Thank you very much. And I'm really honored to be with my colleagues. And I was, honored also to have this panel to speak and to elaborate and extend, many more about the teacher policies in Kuwait. And we will also talk about the things beyond the Ministry of Education in Kuwait. First of all, I'll share my screen. And okay, I'll share the PowerPoint presentation here. Let me just click. And I want to, before we start, I just want to address an important thing. Maybe it's just, color, but I meant to make it black and white because unfortunately, teachers nowadays, they are stuck between either or. They are stuck into a lot of, regulations that enable them to be creative and limits their potentials and sometimes, narrow their vision and let them, teach for the sake of, let's say, testing. That's why the need for national teacher framework in Kuwait, the situation analysis of a hidden project. And I will brief you now about the background and of the the things behind the policies. Now, recent studies have shown that teachers' effectiveness is the key predictor for students' learning. A number of studies have found that teachers' effectiveness is the most important school-based predictor for student learning and several connection or consecutive years of outstanding teaching. This thing, teacher effectiveness, could help students from being disadvantaged group or being disadvantaged students. However, the struggle that the teacher enter their career path with sometimes eliminate their potential, eliminate their motivation. Therefore, the background of the national teacher framework and the national policy was part of the World Bank, agreement between Kuwait government, represented by the Ministry of Education and the National Center for Education Development. That had a integrated program of 5 pillars. The second pillar was about teacher effectiveness. And by saying that, it focused on 4 sub projects. One was, the national teacher policy, which we will discuss today. And one was, having a national professional development framework, and then teacher standards. And the last one was, not part of the agreement, but it was, integrated within the pillar itself. It was teacher licensing. So the project started in 2015 and ended in 2018. However, it ended with, let's say, a negative ending, and that's what also we're going to cover by the end of our lecture today. So the national teacher framework. Why do we need a national teacher framework in Kuwait? First of all, we need to identify teacher's role as a teacher, as an administrator, or as an educator. Usually teachers, they enter their career, they don't know their job description, especially here in Kuwait. There isn't any sort of, agreement that the teachers sign, and they understand their, their responsibilities, their duties, and their rights. Usually they enter the field and they are purely trained as technical, but they don't see the vision behind it. So also, their right for professional development and how they are being assessed as a teacher. Also, we had another thing that is very crucial here in Kuwait to ensure the entry of the most talented teachers of the field of education within clear terms and regulations. When you don't have a filter and when you assign anyone, and until now, the Civil Service Commission allows Kuwaiti citizens, as we will elaborate more, to enter even if they have a non-education background. And some are struggling because they are, in relation with the subject matter, but they have really poor pedagogical background, and which cause, disadvantaged among students. That's why asking or having a filter to get the most talented teachers instead of just, making sure that the vacant place for a teacher is replaced without having a specialized or a professional teacher. Also, we have a struggle when we forecast and when we did this let's say the analysis in the beginning of the project, which I was leading. We noticed that the development of teacher professional capacity in the field of education, it's missing, and while ensuring that the students' needs are being met, we need to link all these incentives for teachers, their promotion, their career path. They, as a unit, as a teacher unit, we are limiting their, let's say, career path and their ladder. Also, assessment for a teacher, it's unclear, and everybody's involved in. Until nowadays, we are struggling to say who gets to do what. Another, or the last, challenge or the objectives for having a national teacher framework is to ensure fairness and unbiased treatment and the rights and duties among teachers. So the national teacher policy framework was a final framework for analyzing teacher policies in the Kuwaiti education system. It did not develop, within the education system itself, but also within the context of the government. And it was also discussed in many forms. It was, we have probably created 6 to 7 committees, and we worked in not less than 10 workshops and campaigns among all sectors in Kuwait. Meaning, we went to Kuwait University, paid all school districts in Kuwait, including private sectors and the NGOs, the non-governmental organizations. So when we wrote that, we wrote it with the spirit and the context of Kuwait. This framework provides a lens through which the Kuwaiti government can focus in attention on the most relevant dimensions regarding teachers' policies. What works, what doesn't work, how to project the future through, the elements, and putting it all together and cluster it all in one document. So moving on, if we look at the axis of the policies, they are, I'm trying to move self, all right. So actually, we have admission and enrollment in training faculties, the pre-service training, appointment, manpower planning, teacher career path, professional development, teaching load, assessment of teachers' rights and duties. All of these things are very important. However, if we look at every policy, it is scattered, or it is under one sector that does not communicate with the, for example, or there is a poor communication between the ministry and the pre-service providers, or there is a lack of understanding between the civil service commission policies and what is being applied in the ministry. Putting them together will make educators, policy stakeholder understand what is going on, and they can expand it, they can work on it, they can put the puzzle together to have a clear solution. If we look at the admission and the enrollment of training faculty in Kuwait, you know, the admission itself in I'm just, you know, opening the iPad because I wrote some, you know, some points. I didn't want to cluster them all here, and you'll, you know, I just didn't want to put too many things here. All right, so the admission itself, currently, it's just based on, you know, high GPA. However, we don't have a filtration in, let's say, paid with the College of Basic Education and Kuwait University, the College of Education. And when we go and we investigate more, we will see that the specialization and the labor market needs, we have a, you know, a very few science teachers in the male schools and male teachers compared to female. And unfortunately, when the colleges admit, they admit in specializations that are already, you know, not a need in the field of education. That's why we are, you know, having an overstaffing, but unfortunately in the wrong specialization. That's why there was a committee that is chaired by, I think, the minister. Yeah, chaired by the minister. And the members of this committee is the Undersecretary of General Education in the public sector and the two deans of colleges. And unfortunately, this committee is, you know, analyzing things in the past. Why? Because they are using an archived data instead of projecting the future. That's why we have addressed this issue, and we said, instead of having a committee that meets every, you know, at the end of the school year and they analyze, we should have a body inside the Ministry of Education in the public sector called the Coordination Department, because they are coordinating and they have all the data and related to all teachers in Kuwait. Therefore, we have suggested all of these, you know, interventions to, let's say, put the tracks, put the policies on the right tracks. Also, we have the issue of transfer to education faculties. A lot of, you know, especially admin works with, let's say, background of English literature or, you know, science, or there are few engineers I didn't get to know a lot, or bankers. They want to transfer to education. All what they want to do is they have a very basic interview that is, you know, not standardized, and they would be given a very primitive test, proficiency test, to assure that they understand the subject. However, they are not being trained, or they don't go through any sort of, you know, any sort of knowledge, and unfortunately, they are enrolled in the teacher. Another thing, Kuwait used to not allow in the 80s and the 90s, they used to collaborate with Kuwait University in education diploma. Say, for example, I graduated with a chemistry degree and I wanted to enroll in the Ministry of Education. The Ministry of Education would enroll me in 1-year diploma that has all the pedagogy. But nowadays it became not mandatory And this program was on a freeze for a long period of time. And we would, through this policy, we wanted to activate it and make it, visible and mandatory for all non-educator major. Another thing is that the pre-service training in Kuwait needs to be, developed even more. Students are mainly and heavily depend on theoretical subjects, which is the content knowledge, the pedagogical knowledge in a passive form. Usually, when I graduated from, my bachelor degree in the States, I was in school from the second year. However, our teachers, our student teachers are getting into the practicum by the fourth year and one semester. So we need to redesign our pre-service training to make it more practical. We have interactive, and we have a more a stronger relationship with early practicum and final practicum. Why? Because we came to a situation where the student is an A student, but cannot communicate with students. They don't know, they have this fear of breaking the ice. But if those students were in the field from the second year and they can see themselves as teachers, they can transfer, and they don't need to, feel that they are placed in a sector that they don't fit in. Therefore, the pre-service training also needs to be more, let's say, live, more energetic, more interactive for our students. Unfortunately, there is one agreement that allows teachers to allow pre-service teachers to be in schools, but again, this is limited to the final practicum and a few courses. But there isn't a, let's say, a school in every district in Kuwait that is designed for pre-service teachers to visit, to get trained, or there aren't a specific school that they are designed to mentor students and enable them to and strengthen their abilities to become, powerful teacher, or they don't have a sort of induction program, as we going to elaborate for the appointment and the professional development. Therefore, the appointment in Kuwait is, again, either or, Kuwaitis and expats. However, when we talk about it, there is a lot of things inside. Unfortunately, we are not looking at the quality. We just want a teacher in a classroom. It's like we have a service. It's like it's an admin work. Anyone can use the computer. We'll just put them and place them, and they will, do the job. However, this isn't the way that it's supposed to be. For the wait a second. For the Kuwaiti citizens, unfortunately, there is it goes both positive and negative way. There is an agreement between both colleges of education and the Ministry of Education that once those students graduate from the College of Education, they immediately transfer and they become teachers without any sort of interviews or any proficiency test or anything. And there is also Kuwaiti citizens who are not specialized, as we said before, in education, and they get appointed through the Civil Service Commission. They go through the interview and they go through the very primitive assessment, and then they're placed in schools. And usually when they are appointed in the school, they would miss the first 2 weeks of training in the beginning of the year, and therefore they are with no experience in relation to the peers who got, appointed earlier, and we're lucky to have the 2 weeks, which is, not enough also, but still they were lucky enough to have some sort of guidance. Another issue that, most of GCC face are expat teachers. Expat teachers, they replace the shortages in many specialization, and they are more into male schools than, citizens, and they are more into core curriculum such as science, math, and linguistics, either Arabic or language arts and English. Therefore, we are dependent on them. Again, how do we collect them? How do we appoint them? It becomes really in a very, very basic way, in selective, by going and do some interviews that are not standardized, and they get tested also with basic knowledge. And usually they are appointed with no background about the culture of Kuwait. Although we are Arabs, but trust me, we have different backgrounds, we have different cultures. They don't understand the culture, they struggle. And again, there isn't, some of them, they lack the quality, but we just want to fill the gap with having someone to cover the curriculum. The career path, which is, another issue, we, as the Kuwaiti system, we've limited the career path for teachers. We have not secured teacher retention in the same field, other than transferring them to become admin. Meaning, if you are a qualified teacher, you've served as a science teacher, now you want to be promoted. If you want to be promoted, you cannot be promoted with the same position. You have to join the admin by being, by chairing a department, by being a supervisor. So what happened is that the path is not paved for teachers to have many alternatives, but we've narrowed it down, and we caused long lines for teachers to get promoted and yet leave their main job, which is teaching. Therefore, our career levels are, very narrow and very limited, and does not really support any sort of mentor teacher or having a, expert teachers. Now, if we talk about the levels of teachers, teachers start their career with being a novice teacher, then they develop to become experienced teachers, and then we have expert teachers. We usually miss the expert teachers or the veteran teachers. Why? Because we ask those two categories to leave and to join the admin career path by not providing, alternatives with the same level of position. So when we go and we talk about even and move on to the manpower by itself is, an integration between pure education administration and a teacher as a career itself. The manpower planning in Kuwait, we have things that needs to be addressed: the distribution on schools, career conjunction, and resignation, retirement, transfer, and promotion. When we talk about distributions on school, unfortunately, there are issues within that field itself. The distribution on schools is not systematic, and it's not based, let's say, electronic based. It's like, okay, if I have, if I have, and I hate to say that, but if I have the connection and the wasta, I will be able to transfer to the school that I want. Which caused inequality among teachers within the same subject. Meaning, if I teach Islamic studies, I could be placed through a connection, through, knowing people in the ministry, to have a teacher load that is less than same, let's say, 7th grade Islamic teacher would teach 12 hours versus 6 hours, which is causing imbalance, and it's causing more teachers to get in the field, but they are not really distributing well. So we asked through the putting this, policies together to systemize this distribution on schools. Also, we don't really filter in the Human Resources Department and the Ministry of Education. When we looked, we noticed that the resignation and retirement are under one category, but you cannot now measure teacher turnover. And this is also an issue that needs to be addressed and, filtered, so we know why teachers are leaving based on resignation versus who gets to retire and stay in the field until their retirement. We have an issue also with the transfer. Say, for example, I work in the oil sector, and suddenly for any purpose, I wanted to move to the education and teach. There isn't a filter. If there is vacancy, and let's say I'm in the oil sector and my background is geology, and I decided to be a geology teacher, I just can apply and I'll get the job next day. It's just the process of the paperwork, but I am guaranteed to be in the field. So there isn't a way to filter, and there isn't a sort of, let's say, probation phase where they are tested and they are being induced through induction programs. Also, the manpower, as I said before, the promotion are enabling teachers to stay in their main job as being a teacher, but they are transferred and they are promoted and they leave the, let's say, the qualified teachers. We are asking them to leave the career path. For the professional development, and that is an art by itself, and we had the sub-project called Continuous Professional Development Framework. We are struggling with 4 types of professional development that we need to expand in, let's say, not only in Kuwait, but also in the GCC country. Newly appointed teachers, and having a mentor teacher, the reward and support, and supervising position. Newly appointed teachers are only 2 weeks of induction, and mostly they are being 1 week of, introducing the admin and the regulations, and the second week would be, general technical issues. But induction programs usually takes and develop and advanced, systems for teachers usually takes 1 year to 2 years. And by that time, there would be a connection between the pre-service providers and, the professional development unit for teachers. So they are being, transferred smoothly from being a student to a teacher with a lot of support. However, a lot of teachers are being left out when they are appointed as a teacher, and they had to do that by themselves. If they are lucky, they will have a good head department that will guide them. And some, departments they don't have, for some reasons, they lack, the English, for example, they lack having a head department a lot of times. So they are being appointed where they are not being supervised or mentored or support during their first and the second year, which can cause, cause turnover. And again, we are lacking numbers. Mentor teacher. We don't have the concept of mentor teacher in the body of our system in education. So we are lacking that. So we have experienced teachers, but however, we don't really train them to become mentor in the school and get it, or some of them, they get certified, but again, our system does not read that. It's very limited, and it's very narrow, and it's very shallow. So having these terminologies in our education, let's say for example, in the field, is highly crucial. We have also the reward and support. Our professional development does not differentiate between qualified teachers who needed to be rewarded with good professional development, or teachers who are struggling and they have some weaknesses and they are in need of support. So the professional development, sometimes some teachers consider them as a punishment. Oh, so you want to punish me by giving me this? And there isn't a guidance. There isn't a, let's say, standards for professional development when it comes to reward and support. The supervising position in Kuwait, we provide them with professional development. But again, we kind of structure them and we give them, like, for example, supervisors are given 3 weeks of, supervising position courses. But again, their job duties are way complex, that they don't really need 3 weeks. They need at least 3 months of induction to transfer their mindset to become real supervised. They are qualified to be supervisors. The teacher load, yes?
Although it's really beautiful, just want to remind you 5 minutes to go before.
5 minutes, okay. As I said, we have the teacher load that is in the inequality, and then we have the teacher assessment. Who gets promoted and who doesn't, and why? Who gets to do what? Everybody's involved in teachers. I can't imagine myself being evaluated other than by my head of department. But in Kuwait, unfortunately, teachers are being evaluated by their department head, supervisors, principals, and many more. So there are too many people with too many perspectives. Different perspectives are being evaluated with an evaluation sheet that does not really fit within the assessment of teachers. And the last one is the teacher rights and duty. Teachers are in the field. If you ask them about their promotion, it's vague. They don't have this clear answer. They don't know their duties, and a lot of teachers, especially, let's say, expats, they have less rights, and this isn't inequality, which really affects, again, student performance. So the whole picture, if we can see it, it's chaotic, and we need to put all of these things in the vision of the minister, high stakeholders, so they can see the whole picture and how it becomes dynamic and they work together. The ongoing challenges. Unfortunately, we ended this project without, having a vision for it. We did not really went beyond and started to strategize through this framework. And I'm still working on it to, reactivate this project and until we have, settlement in the education sector. But, we need more consultation to have this better connection with the Civil Service Commission. A lot of people, especially, international agencies, when they come to do any projects related to reform education in Kuwait, they only look at the Ministry of Education. They don't go beyond. They don't understand that in Kuwait, the Ministry of Education is regulated by something bigger. We have the Civil Service Commission and the Civil Service Committee. And we have also the parliament that they issue the, the laws. So all of these things are not being in the vision while they are being supported and being also reformed, let's say. The lack of a single government central authority to deal with teachers. You can tell that teachers matter are scattered all over. It's between, the pre-service providers, the human resources in the body of Ministry of Education, supervisors, school districts, it's all over scattered, and also the National Center of Education Development. So to help make the National Teacher Framework effective, we need to incentivize the stakeholders to undertake some proposed changes, include career ladders for teachers. We cannot limit teachers, and we cannot ask them to leave their, let's say, their position just because our career ladder is enabling them to stay as teachers. One last word, the core remains in policies. We need to have actions and likely to lead this measurable improvement in Kuwait teacher quality. We need to put all of these things and cluster them all together and put them in one document so we can see the whole picture. Teachers are being sometimes misled, misted due to too many policies and too many things are going on within the same field. And questions, thank you for listening, and I hope I did not really I extended the 5 minutes, I know.
MashaAllah.
So thank you for listening.
Thank you, Dr. Fatima. You were right on time, mashallah. So we feel your passion and we appreciate your hands-on experience on the subject. Definitely, teachers are the cornerstone of the entire learning and education system. To summarize, we have discussed the lack of integration between the civil services, policies in schools, the imbalance in specialization, the lack of good job descriptions. Aside of delivering their curriculum, there are certain missing values. The pre-service training is missing. There's no standardized interviews. There's a leakage from the teaching jobs to admin jobs. The interference of WASTA, which is a big corruption according to transparency.com. We don't have the concept of a mentor teacher. We don't have a proper rewarding system, evaluations, understanding of rights and duties, and lack of a central authorities. And therefore, all these policies need some reform. I would like to entertain some of the questions that are on the Q&A, and your please, you can have your questions over there. Our first question is from Mr. Yusuf Al-Khalifi. His question states, isn't it better before setting up an educational reform plan for teachers that there should be a self-development for skill and faculty members in the educational colleges to keep pace with the most important developments in the educational system? I think what Mr. Yusuf Al-Khlaifi means is like train the trainer program, like to educate the teachers, the faculty members that are gonna prepare those teachers. Please, Dr. Fatimah.
Yes, thank you. By the way, my Zoom is on a freeze.
That's all right. That's all right. We can hear you.
I hope you can see me. So in terms of train of trainers, again, I did not really elaborate that much. We don't have a professional development unit in the Ministry of Education, meaning our training department in the ministry, it is for all employees. So it does not really differentiate whether you are an admin or you are a teacher. So there isn't a specialized programs that is based on, let's say, TAPAC model like technology or pedagogy or content knowledge. And we've recommended to have such of, as we said in the mentor, the trainer concept in the body of the Ministry of Education. So again, missing that would also mislead people. Anyone could be a trainer of trainers.
Dr. Fatimah? Dr. Fatimah? I think there was a cutoff. And I think Mr. Yusuf Al-Khlaifi has also meant the training of the faculty members at the university before those teachers graduate and enter the field. Okay. So the technical staff are taking care of this, and inshallah within minutes, Dr. Fatimah will be back into the panel. If not, we could move to Dr. Ahoud Al-Asfour, who is taking over in the third panel for this conference. And by the way, yes, last night I was
sorry.
Yes,
I'm back.
Yes,
I'm back.
Okay, Dr. Fatimah,
yes.
Mr. Yusuf Al-Khlaifi, I think was discussing the faculty members, like الدكاترة بالجامعة.
Yeah. Okay.
Are they qualified enough to prepare those teachers for the field?
Now, when we talk about faculty, they are, we have to differentiate between practicum and in-field of education and us as faculty who work with, theoretical background. There are qualified faculty, but again, we need programs to assure that they are qualified. I can come and say I am qualified, but based on what standards? So we need to create the standards to fit within those, elements. Other than that, everybody will consider themselves based on experience or based on like studying a theory.
Okay. Dictora, for the lack of time, I have to move for the next question. This question is in Arabic, so our English speakers could just toggle their interpretation icon. So Mr. عزام منصور يقول: دكتورة فاطمة، المشكلة تكمن أن في عدم وجود ربط بين الهيئات التعليمية وسوق العمل، ومدى احتياج سوق العمل للتخصصات التي يحتاجها. بالإضافة وأعتقد أن درجة البكالوريوس في الكويت كثيرة، ولكن التخصصات التقنية والفنية هي ما يحتاج إليه سوق العمل. So he's saying that the technical disciplines and subjects
قاعد ترجمين دكتورة ما
yeah,
يصير.
sorry. Okay, please go ahead. Please go ahead.
بالنسبة لي سأجاوب باللغة العربية. بالنسبة لي ربط التخصصات، مشكلتنا في عدم توفير المسارات المهنية. ولذلك أحيانا نحتاج إلى مرحلة مثل مرحلة جدا مهمة وهي مرحلة الطفولة المبكرة، الحضانات. لا يوجد برامج معتمدة لدى العديد من الدول لمرحلة الحضانة، على الرغم من أهمية الطفولة المبكرة. وأنا أعطيكم بس هذا المثال. فقس على ذلك يعني.
Mr. Salim, his question is also in Arabic. يقول يعطيك العافية دكتورة فاطمة. ويقول أقترح نظام ال5 سنوات للإعداد بحيث تكون السنة الخامسة تدريب مكثف للمعلمين وشكرا. ما رأيك في ذلك؟
5 سنوات، 4 سنوات، 6 سنوات، هي مو مشكلة السنوات، هي مشكلة الفيجن، الرؤية الواضحة، المسار المفعل بطريقة صحيحة. هناك برامج إعداد 4 سنوات ولكن خلينا نقول ذات جودة، نحتاج إلى تجويدها، نحتاج إلى ربطها بطريقة صحيحة. نحتاج إن أوكي يمكن السنة الخامسة تكون بالتعيين ولكن بنفس الوقت تكون على درجة التعيين بنظام التنمية المهنية، وإنه يجتاز بعدها نظام الاختبار.
Thank you. Moving to the next comment. So I'll be switching to English for the last 2 questions. So you can click the interpretation button if you want it in Arabic. So this is from Mr. Ayman. He thanks you very much for the insightful speech. You've done a great job in clarifying and defining the issues and the fundamental stuff of the developmental process. Dr. Reynaldo, he thanks you for the comprehensive presentation, and his question is, to what extent do you involve the stakeholders in the educational reform programs in Kuwait, and how embedded is benchmarking in your curriculum development and the educational landscape in general in Kuwait?
That's another lecture.
You have 2 minutes, Victoria. You have 2 minutes.
All right. So basically, our stakeholders in Kuwait are not sustainable, meaning we have a lot of, changing in the ministerial level, which is causing a lot of, issues related to sustainable programs. So our, we are trying now through a lot of, movements to make the education sector more sustainable by moving the policies to the Prime Minister office instead of the minister.
Oh, that's excellent. Well, our time is almost up. It was a very informative, comprehensive presentation. I myself do have many questions. Maybe I will just ask you offline. And now I will hand the floor to Dr. Uhood Al-Asfour for the panel session for the day. And,
may I say something?
Yes.
One thing, yeah. I just want to thank Dr. Uhood Al-Asfour for all of her work. And all, Al-Qasimi and the GCC comparative, conference for such a professional way of, doing this conference. I really admire all of this work, and I sincerely thank all of you, especially Dr. Uhood. I'm really, really proud of you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Fatima, and thanks for the organizer. I'm getting many positive comments about your talk, and for the rest of us, enjoy the rest of the day. Assalamu alaikum.